So you're a low spender or a free-to-play player inside of Diablo Immortal, and you're wondering how you can compete with the whales, the big spenders. Well, today I have Kevin here, who is a low spender with low resonance inside of Diablo Immortal, who is able to compete and battle against high resonance whales. He's gonna take us through his reasoning, how he does it, and give us examples of his build. And remember, this is not class specific. Kevin, thanks for coming to the channel today, man. Let's dive into some of your tips.
Sure, King. Yeah, basically, I started playing the game during the launch of the initial alpha, and I'm a big RPG fan, but I was surprised to find Battlegrounds PvP the most fun and engaging part of the game.
Really? See, I don't find it the most fun and engaging, but maybe that's because I'm not having the success that you're having, or my expectations are different from what your expectations are. So tell us how you you kind of put your thought process together to make this type of a build, what you do to be successful, and then we'll get into the build towards the end of the video. By the way, everyone, this video may be a little bit longer, and it's because it's filled with tips throughout, so make sure you don't miss any of it. So Kevin, how did this all start? What was your thought process?
Basically, from what I learned in the alpha, and you know, like most players, I think, you know, a lot of the PvE content it's all reliant on damage and speed and efficiency. So when it came to the PvP, you know, I did the same thing everyone else sort of does, and you start with your build that you're using in the environment and just, you know, getting destroyed and dominated, and starting to experiment with the skills and how they applied when you're trying to avoid damage from players rather than, you know, the game itself, which it's, you know, you're much better off avoiding damage in the environment versus being able to tank it and things like that. So I realized there was just more of an emphasis in PvP on mobility, you know, movement speed, how well you got from the experience of playing is determined by the skills you're using, their cooldowns, their amounts of charges and things like that.
See, that's really interesting because most players, myself included, we all focus on damage, dropping as much damage as you can. And when we make our builds, just like you said, we take the builds that we're using in the environment and then we modify them for PvP. But
yeah,
you're saying here, don't focus on damage, focus on your ability to not be damaged, and you're going to see more success. So I want to hear more about it and see how you actually do this.
Yeah, it's based on the objectives of the Battlegrounds are to, you know, well, the second phase is key. The first phase with the Guardians, you know, if you're getting dominated there as the attacker, for example, like, you're not going to do well when you're pushing the idols. If they're destroying you that much, when you've got 3 channels to get to the Guardians, you're not going to do very well. It's probably an imbalanced match. But the second Guardian, the second phase, pushing the idols, is where all the contest is. And that's all about holding ground. So, you know, crowd control, defense, being able to tank damage, and mobility to avoid damage, you know, baiting out the abilities of your opponents, as well as making sure that yours land or yours are effective. So that was like the premise of how I structured my PvP build. It's all about crowd control, tank, and agility, you know, being able to avoid damage and tank what does land.
Okay, so I love this because when we think PvP, whether it's in Diablo Immortal or shooters like Call of Duty, most people care about is kills. Get as many kills as you can. But we're watching some gameplays, you go over this right now, and I'm noticing that you're not getting a lot of kills, that you're getting more of a support role. So we kind of discussed this a little bit before we started recording here. What are your expectations, or what should a free-to-play player's expectations be as a PvP player versus someone that is going against a whale?
Yeah, so the hardest deficit to overcome if you're not whaling, you know, you're not ranking 10, the epic gems, you know, the ones that go up to 5 stars, is, you know, you're going to struggle to get the kills or the damage on the big opponents. But what you're able to do is, you know, be annoying, play distraction, draw them away from the objectives, You know, if you're just a red dot on the mini map, they don't know your resonance until they can see who you are. You know, there's plenty of strategies that you can use to still be effective in a match, even if you're not dealing damage. The biggest problem is just what people enjoy doing. If you know, you don't enjoy being less aggressive, then you're really going to struggle when it comes to PvP in the matches where you're pitched with people with big damage, whether they're whaling or not.
Oh,
And the key aspect I found, because the hardest part for a low spender or FTP is because of that power gap. It was similar in the alpha. I wasn't a big grinder, so in there you couldn't spend. It was the players that grinded out all their gear and upgrades and Paragon that were able to create a power gap. And the even if you're in that category, your power's much higher. The single best objective in a battleground PvP is survival, because the time you spend respawning, you're effectively making it a 7v8 match if all you're doing is running into the enemy and dying every spawn. So to be effective, you need to be around, and being able to disengage battle, heal up, come back in is much quicker, much more effective than just running in. Even if you killed 4 opponents and then you die, you're better off killing 2 opponents, getting out, healing, coming back and rinse repeat, because you can do that 2, 3, 4 times as quick.
you're making some great points that are really resonating, and one of them was about the gems. So you said, as a free-to-play or low spender, realistically, us, because I'm in that category as well, I only buy the battle pass every month, we're not going to be able to battle or compete or drop as much power or damage as someone that's whaling with 10 out of, 5-star gems that are all maxed out to 10. So that brings up the question that I'm interested in is, what's your gem theory? What do your gems look like, if you could show us? And what's your philosophy behind gems? Do you go with 1 stars, 2 stars? Do you have any 5 stars? What should we be looking at as low spenders or even free to play as far as the gems go? And I want to see your resonance too. Can you click on your resonance really quick? I see 1,436 gem resonance.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow.
And
And you're able to compete.
That's a recent increase as well. I've been around 1.2k. The only reason that's gone up is because I happened to drop the 4-star Blood-Soaked Jade quite recently. I was planning to rank up a Battle Guard 2-star gem. But literally the same day I got the 40th. What are they called?
The pearl? You got your pearls?
Yeah, literally the same day I got the 40th pearl. During a Elder Rift, the 4-star BSJ dropped, and so I thought, oh, okay, I'll put that in, because I've wanted that for its movement speed. Because I'm very focused. Like, even my secondary gears, because we've just hit Hell 8, I don't have ideal stats and I don't farm a great deal of equipment. But prior to that, when I get an ability that suits my PvP build more, for example, set gear with movement speed, I'll drop a bunch of combat rating for PvP just for those abilities, because they have, for me, with more experience playing PvP, I'll probably do at least 2 hours a day. Those things that improve your mobility and your cooldowns, and they sort of amplify your skill level, if you know what I mean. The more experience and the more skilled you are at it, the quicker you can cast your abilities. They're the things that really make an impact in each battle.
Yeah. Okay. So 2 things I want to check out here. 1, I do the same thing as you. I'll sacrifice combat rating for the set items that I want for those skills and abilities. So I agree with you 100% there. I want to see your gems. Take us through what gems you're using right now, and have you awakened your gear? I mean, I could tell that you have awakened some of your gear.
Yeah, exactly. So very at the start of the game, I realized it was way too expensive to focus on, these 5-star gems. Um, so my priority was to just work up. So work up from 1-star gems. I had 4 initially.
Mm-hmm.
I recently got the gem power to be able to upgrade a 2-star, the Cursed Ling, and I replaced, I think I had Carson's Invigoration because that used to be good based on my alpha build, but I've changed my primary attack um, for this because of the cooldown on the teleport for the punch. And I don't need the I don't need the extra attack speed anymore because that was one way of getting around the battle was to just teleport punch everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But since that sort of got nullified, I find, and also the range was increased since the alpha on Deadly Reach. Not to mention its ultra ability is super effective in PvP with the knockback.
Now, another point that you made to me before that I also really liked, because for me, my character now is all 3 out of 5-star gems, but they're only level 3 or 4, and that's all they're really gonna ever get to, because I'm never gonna spend crazy to get them up. I know I need to make changes. So
Yeah, that's it.
you mentioned that when you have all of these 5-star gems, for me right now as the necromancer, it really can get difficult to have fluidity with your build and to class change. These are some really nice benefits of utilizing 1-star gems because you could have max level 1-star gems and have a couple of them in your bag as well that may even be max level because they're so much easier to get to max level. So for me, my build is pretty specific to Necro now. I've been considering going back to Barbarian. I actually miss it a lot, but I'm wondering if how I have things built out, if it's going to hurt me going to Barbarian. And I'm thinking that a couple of the gems that I'm using, like Howler's Call or like Phoenix Ashes, or there's a couple of other ones that I could kind of probably do without if I should switch them out for other 1-star gems. So how do you feel about that? Can you touch on that topic about just the ability to not be locked into a class?
100%. And when you hit that wall as a low spender or free to play, where you can't progress the rank of your, 4 or 5-star gems, decreases the enjoyment you can have in the game as well. So the biggest limiting factor on ranking gems, and that's not just for free to play, but for whales as well, is the duplicates required.
Right.
Even this 3-star blood, 4-star blood soaked jade, I may end up using as food further down the track because, like in the market, it's the most popular gem. So, like, I can't even buy one if I want to.
Yeah.
And if I do catch one, I'm going to be competing with who knows how many other people just to bid for it.
Yeah, it is the most difficult one to rank up because they're the most expensive, take the most platinum. And whether you're farming platinum, which I want you to talk about soon as well, versus just buying platinum, it can be difficult.
Yeah, exactly. And so, to rank 10 a 1-star gem, you only need an additional 5 duplicates from the original version to do, and they're from your rifts and your runes. That's easily done. Not only that, but yeah, if I do a class change, I want to play something more offensively or whatever I want to do, it's changeable.
Yeah.
I've got one rank 10 2-star, and if I go into the resonance, I've now got another 2-star ranked 5, and again, I will emphasize, as we mentioned, like I've spent a bit on the game. I've basically got all the battle passes, the boon of plenty, because that was the best value for me because I was using that to create profits in the market.
Right.
And there's 4 additional slots, essentially double the profits I've been making since the start of the game. But I've also bought a bunch of bundles. I didn't, for example, get that one with the guaranteed 4-star gem. I think it was $300 to me. It just, it just wasn't worth it. But I have still spent a fair bit, and on cosmetics and things, I'd rather get this cosmetic than some of the epic gems because I'm never going to be able to upgrade them.
That's the
But
problem. The gems, I feel like they give us a temporary feeling of joy. And then you realize, well, man, I'm stuck again and I need to buy more. And it's until you get to 10, which is literally thousands of dollars, which I know I'm not spending. I don't believe you are either. I'd
yeah,
rather get the joy out of the skins. I agree.
yeah, and which is funny too because whenever I drop a epic gem, I don't care. Like, oh, that's great. That's 32 gem power. Like, I'm happy to use that as food, even if it was a 3 or 4 star
Huh.
epic gem that I'm never going to use. It really doesn't phase me because I'm enjoying the way that these gems work and their abilities. And when I go more specifically into the build, I'll discuss why I've chosen the 1 star gems. But for a free to play, I'd recommend anyone who's starting at least to you know literally choose the gems. Start off with 6 1 star gems because you never lose gem power. If I've upgraded one to 5 and I use that for food later, all the gems that went into it are still there as gem power.
Right.
You never actually lose it whenever you're using this food. So when you change, you haven't lost anything. It's only when you get into 2 stars and the amount of duplicates that have gone into it, like I'll be very hesitant to use a curse 10 rank 10 curseling because I think it was something like 29 copies of that gem I needed to get just to fully upgrade it.
Right.
Whereas it's only 6 total copies of any 1 star gem.
All right, so my question to you is I'm sitting with a whole bunch of 5-star gems. They're ranked 3 or 4. Would you recommend that I use something like a Phoenix Ashes or something like a Howler's Call as food to then get myself and upgrade something like a Berserker's Eye 1-star gem? What's your recommendation there? Do I use it as food because I can't sell them because they're not sellable in the market? Or do I kind of just put it in my satchel and have it wait there for the future? What do you think?
Yeah, well, that's a very tough question to answer for one reason. Like, I don't have the comparison as to, like I haven't had that resonance, for example, um, as to what impact that will make on your game. You've got like an expectation based on what you've been using. It's the same thing. You'll drop combat rating on gear for certain stats. I do
Right.
that. I apply the same principle to resonance. I drop a significant amount of resonance. If I'd have gone with those gems, even though I would have got blocked at some point, I'd still have higher resonance for the gem power that I've used now. Um, but I'd rather sacrifice that resonance for some of the key abilities. So to give you a quick example, I think it's this one. So I've got full resonance on this, 2 rank 10 normal gems, um, which unlock the resonance bonuses. Now I'm playing tank, so all my defensive gems are giving bonus resonance attributes for damage reduction. Um, and it is very specific what I've chosen. So you'd really want to have an idea of what build you want to focus on in order before you even began doing something like that. It's going to change how your game plays, and a lot of people just might not like the change and think, oh, they've dropped too much damage or too much life or whatever it is. And again, as I was saying, it's being a low spender does kind of bottleneck what effective builds you can use in PvP, and consequently, like, my damage is very low. So I sacrifice a bit of efficiency in PvE. If PvP isn't your thing, then it's probably unwise to do that straight away. But if you can say use some strategies like focusing on survival, the more you survive in the battles, the faster you can learn as well. Learn when to engage as opposed to just constantly trying to deal damage and then end up dying. If you're fighting around the edges, if you're waiting for your team before you engage, which is the best way to play if if there's a big power gap in your team. You'll never be able to take on groups at a time. So wait till your team comes in, then sort of follow up, chuck in your skills and your AoEs and whatever you're trying to use while there's the distraction of your teammates around, and you're essentially supporting them with additional damage rather than, just throwing away the extra play that they need to help win objectives.
All right.
So it's a very, hard recommendation to make. But that's exactly what I've done in the game, and I really enjoy just being able to, focus on what the gems do rather than the resonance that they provide. And for this specific build, like everything is synergistic. It's all designed to work together. So based on that, yeah, I'd certainly recommend it. And it doesn't have to be a straightaway thing. You could try one, and I'd recommend if you were going to replace one to begin with, I'd figure out these unlocked green bonuses when you rank something to 10, that awaken bonus. And I've specifically only used these 4 slots for this build because they're both reducing, or they're all reducing cooldowns. I haven't done anything. If I awaken these 2 on my shoulders and pants, they'd just be increasing damage, which I'm not there to deal damage anyway, so I don't need them awakened by any means.
I understand.
Whereas my crowd control stun circle, the cooldowns are reduced by these awaken gems. So there's a inner sanctuary cooldown decreased by 10% on my helmet. There's another cooldown decrease on my secondary weapon. And then the other key ability or skill in the build is Shield of Zen. And I'm getting 10% reductions from my chest and main weapon. So they're very important to me being able to use my skills more frequently to help impact the battle rather than by dealing damage.
I understand. All right, so now that you gave us all those tips and your whole thought process behind your build, for all the monks out there, why don't you give them a quick look at how you've built it up, what gems you're using, what skills you're using, and maybe the gear really quickly before we get out of here for today.
Yep. So as I was saying, everything's focused on survivability. So that's armor and HP, all the defensive stats, magic bonuses, attributes of gear, skills like Shield of Zen, which provides a shield, all my invocations, all my reforges on gear, it's just stacked on defense so that I can actually tank a bit of damage. And, whilst players around my level and maybe up to about 5k, I can tank a fair bit of damage and not have to bail really quick. But even the higher res players, I can still survive bursts of their attacks, one-on-one. It's when I get mobbed and crowd controlled that I'll tend to go down. But, I can goose egg like that match that I showed you. I survived the whole match and I was the only one to do so in the match, despite my resonance.
Yeah, that's impressive.
So the key thing is, every player should have, well, if you alternating defense and offense, obviously you want offense in PvE, is that I've got 2 sets of gear. I look for the attributes that don't have strength, because I'm not there to do damage. My primary attack is for crowd control by applying slow. So here, for example, I'm looking for magic offensive gear, 15% chance to reduce enemy speeds. Also, all of my bonuses are defense oriented, or CC. So I've got resistance, damage resistance. I've got 2 of the tremor set, 2 of the shield one, and 2 of the jolt set. And I've focused them all on defensive rather than offensive. Again, I have a different build, so one way of increasing my damage in PvE is by changing the sets that I use to enhance my damage. Again, as as I farm more gear, I'm looking more for PvP gear than I am for PvE when I'm doing dungeons. I don't do many, so I'll swap out gear as they get the attributes that I want, or the number of sockets, or the magic abilities like movement speed, cooldown reduction, or defensive stuff like, decreased damage taken by players, death, anything that helps defensively in PvP. I've focused on aquamarine normal gems, which I've been able to get most of during the first phase of the game when, at least on Oceania, you could buy them quite cheaply, but now they're selling for 400.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I'm focused more on rubies than I am on tourmalines. More focused on. I've got a lot of damage reduction when stunned, so I focus potency more than resistance. And the gems I've chosen, Hearthstone is for the as much the just increasing the effects or the duration of shields, which, because of my Blessed Pebble, also increases my movement speed. So
Okay.
I can kite damage. I can literally dodge basic ranged attacks just by walking back and forth. Respite Stone is probably my MVP. Getting up to 16% damage reduction from everything, if below 10% or around 10% life. So players really think that they can burst you down, but they're doing less and less damage as they're hitting you. So I'm able to bait out their abilities, bail, heal, and then my team will roll in and do the damage. So that's very key to the build. And even the epic gems that I do have are all defensive based. Frozen Heart for that shield and slow to make it harder to kill me and my teammates. Blood-Soaked Jade, again, primarily is for the movement speed, and also damage reduction, 50% life, because I'm not there to really deal damage.
I like that. So you're actually using the Blood-Soaked Jade for the opposite reason of most other people. You're doing it not for the damage, but for the speed. Now, I see your charm as well.
Yeah, and one of the strategies of gaining profits in the market were by buying skill stones low and selling high. And, the profits basically paid for the skill stones that I was able to use for mine. I didn't have to buy any of those, and I've had pretty good luck with those, I've got to admit.
Nice. All right, so you've taken us through your gear, your gems. Let's take a look at the actual skills that you're using for your monk now, too.
Yep, so the build has evolved a bit since I first started with some of the new essences, particularly the ones for Mystic Strike. So the increased range on that is absolutely insane. The knock-up effect. I'd usually use this dash to, get out of danger more than I would to engage. But that knock-up really enabled me to start using dragon attack as well, because you get knocked out of that at startup, but if you're able to knock up the enemies first, it sort of makes sure that you can actually get that attack off.
Yeah, I like that.
And the primary is the stun circle, and how to use that is probably a video all in of itself, but you'll be able to see from my cooldown timer, it's only inactive for about 4 seconds because of the awakened gems and the essences that I use. So that only lasts as long as you survive. So it's the key to using that is having a lot of armor, and armor also with all the shields that I use with the mount back 4 set, basically can make my Zen last longer because it's not getting removed as quickly by damage. Whereas if you're an attacker using Shield of Zen, one hit and you've lost it. Whereas I can tank quite a few hits without losing it, especially if I've got other shields up at the same time. They sort of go over the top. And again, because of the awaken cooldown reductions, Um, that's effectively up as long as the cooldown is. It's reduced in PvP, so I think it times out just before I can recast it, but it usually gets removed by damage before then anyway.
I like it. So it's basically all about protecting yourself, stunning people, and being able to get out of the way. I think this was extremely valuable, both to me and to the audience, and of course to all the monks out there specifically. But it really makes me rethink how I'm building my classes up and really what my priorities should be inside of the game. Any last things that you want to mention before we close out for today? And by the way, I'm going to want to have you back in the channel if you'd like to come back. There's a lot more we could discuss in another video as well.
100%. There's so much depth um, still to sort of go over, just as far as overall strategy, no matter what class build you use in Battlegrounds. And when I say PvP, I am focused on Battlegrounds. It's a different game when you're talking about the Vault. We've got that new mode launched this week, even the Arena. But for me, it's just been so enjoyable to play in Battlegrounds. I definitely want to give a shout out to all the people in second bracket in Oceania. Without good opponents and good players, like, I just wouldn't be playing the game.
Yeah, it's an important point to make. I'm glad that you made that shout out as well. Well, I want to thank you for coming through today. Definitely a longer video, and those people that stuck around till the end really got themselves a bunch of doses of great information and a whole new thought process for how to build in Diablo Immortal. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss out on future videos. And also, I mean, we're going to have Kevin back for more in-depth discussions. Kevin, thanks for coming through today, man. I appreciate your time.
No worries. Pleasure.
And for all of you, hope you have a great day and be good.